not
Please.
It's like that, what was like that viral?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
First on our agenda is a discussion of the private snowplows on village streets. In your memo that I sent, I provided the language that we currently have in place that pertains to people putting snow in the street during the snowstorms. And there was an incident that came to my attention that I thought would benefit us to have a conversation. The private property snow removal, if you look at 2210-12, encroachment, littering, and obstructions prohibited, number E, or letter D, I'm sorry. No person, firm, or corporation shall throw, place, or deposit, or cause to be thrown, placed, or deposited any snow, ice, glass, nails, bottle refuse, garbage, or other waste materials in public streets. And we've had a few instances, one recently, but a number of them where I've gotten some calls with people that said, my neighbor's snowblowing snow in the middle of the street. And Justin, did you want to share your?
Yeah, so one thing that's not covered in our current code is private plows actually actively plow village streets. Most of the time, this may occur if they're trying to move snow from one parcel of real estate to another parcel of real estate, which, in a small town neighborhood, that's not exactly the nice thing to do, to take your snow from your driveway, put it on papers. But actually, this recent snowstorm, I had a personal experience where a plow was stopped on the side of the road. And as a relative of mine was getting out of the car because we couldn't get out of our car within our driveway because of all the snowbanks and the cars parked because of the shared driveway. The plow began to actively plow, pushing snow, coming within inches of my car, and thankfully my relative did not get out of the car and was not hit. But, when confronted, the plow driver just didn't care. He was actually quite confrontational about it. And it municipalities like the village of Pelham, the town of Tuxedo, which actually have restrictions against plows from actually plowing town and village streets or moving snow from one parcel of property to another parcel of property. That is what this plow driver was doing at that time. And the snow ended up getting deposited on another neighbor's property, which temporarily, until they came out to be shoveled, obstructed an ADA curb cut. So my thought is we need to update village code now that we're seeing. I've seen a noticeable intake in the number of private plow companies for driveways to spell out in village code that you can't deposit snow on other people's property when you're snow plowing. And frankly, you shouldn't be operating a plow on a village street. That's why we have village snow plows. The village of Pelham made an exception where it's like 2 feet within the driveway, so the plow driver can obviously drop the plow and plow the driveway, but it's not allowed. You can't do exactly what this particular plow driver did. And I see it as a public safety issue, rather than a nuisance issue. Because you do have kids who go out and actively play, in front of their houses during the snowstorm.
Other thoughts?
Yes, thoughts, I know that the last snowfall was extraordinary. And there was a lot of frustration as to where are we gonna dump the snow, okay? So separate apart from that, I am in agreement with trustee Cook. One thing that was a major factor, and I know the fire department and DPW will back me up on this, is plowing right into the fire hydrants. I mean, we've been through this every single year to make sure that area is significantly important, that there is snow removal. I saw a couple plows, they're plowing right into the fire hydrant. So in addition to plowing on the streets, I would make sure that there is an exception that you can't plow right into the fire hydrants. With that said, I'm in full agreement, and it's a dangerous situation overall.
George?
Question for you. What if there was an incident with a guy pushing snow, a snowplow contractor pushing snow from a private residence, contracted by a private residence in the right of way? What would happen if they did come into contact with a vehicle? Are they treated like any other motor vehicle, or are they different because they have the extra device and they're there for a specific purpose? For a person.
An accident?
Right. Struck a vehicle, broke a fire hydrant, broke a curb.
I mean, in an accident, if they struck something, they'd be deemed at fault, they'd be issued a ticket, possibly.
Yeah.
Regardless of the ticket, if you're at fault, your insurance rate could go up.
But I guess my question is, there a difference between a regular motor vehicle and a snowplow operator that's there for hire by a resident? Okay. So, just kind of back to the whole not having any language in code about a snowplow pushing snow, a private snowplow pushing snow on a road. This section D here about shall not place or anything in a public street. So I agree with the sentiment of trying to oversee this a little bit more in detail, but what's the right answer, I guess, is the question. They are overseen like by general traffic law, right?
So I'm a little confused with the question, but
I'm strictly
any
simple.
vehicle on the road is subject to the vehicle and traffic law.
Right.
Regardless if it's commercial or not. If someone's plowing your driveway and they strike your neighbor's vehicle, it would go against their insurance, possibly
They're contracted.
probably,
by,
I would assume that they would have business insurance for that.
Yeah. My question is trying to differentiate the two activities, right? Just a regular vehicle on the road or someone that's there for hire. I'm just really thinking out loud, to be honest with you.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I would just make sure I can get my notes. You're also talking about the blade being down.
The blade being down and actively pushing snow, like,
Actively pushing snow.
I grew up in a community where it was, you're a private plow, you didn't put your plow down on a public street at all. It was prohibited. And a lot of times, I remember we were talking about it in high school participation in government class. It was for safety reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it causes undue damage to the roadways, there's a liability, that's why I was just trying to differentiate the two.
Enforcement of that should also be police department, right? It's the enforcement.
You have to catch them in the
Yeah.
act.
Let's say, yeah, I know that, hey, Joe Schmo was, plowing right over and trustee Cook just mentioned it could have been a confrontation. I'm sure he got.
But regardless, as a violation, it would have to be witnessed by the officer, even the trustee seeing it would not be enough. We could call the person and say, hey, don't do it again.
Right.
You would have to be in fact calling the actor to do it.
Let me
You
get
could
trust,
write a police report though, at a minimum, he could call it in and have it documented.
let me just get trustee Brown.
I mean, I see no issue with adding a piece to our code about not having plows down in village roads. I think I have the same question that I think that we can put it in code as a deterrent, but I don't know how enforceable it is unless, again, it's witnessed by an officer, if somebody files a report. I mean, but I don't see any issue with it. I do think that maybe in the event that something happened, it allows us to levy additional penalties, right? If it's a violation of, if a plow had their plow down, a private plow in the street, and they had an accident, there would be the regular course of action where insurance would cover it or whatever. But if they had their plow down, I mean, in a village roadway, if we change code, that would allow us to levy additional penalties, correct?
Depending on how the violation, how it's written.
But theoretically, it's an addition, it's
I'm gonna have
something,
to research it honestly.
it's something we don't currently have. Yeah, so that's where sort of I'm at, right? Is like, it's dangerous. It could lead to a tragedy. Like, it's not okay. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't add it to the code, and then maybe it exists and it allows us to, if somebody did say, hey, we witnessed you have your plow down, maybe somebody reaches out to the company and says, hey, you're not supposed. I don't know what that looks like. I don't want to end up too far down the what if rabbit hole, but I don't see any problem with adding it to the codes. I mean, we're going to be making a bunch of changes to codes anyway. As far as I'm concerned, this is a one-line addition to our current code on this, and it seems pretty simple to get done. Let me say this, I don't see a downside.
The only other part I wanted to ask, and I'll go to, I see it. What do we have in place for the fire hydrants? There's nothing, we just expect people to clean it.
Code that you're not supposed to.
Right.
You're supposed to keep it 3 foot.
Around your-
Around a hydrant.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if it's in our village code that the homeowner, it's typically whoever property the hydrant is on is responsible for actually cleaning.
Yeah, if a big private plow is plowing the road, and perhaps a short individual, if it's like that,
Well, really,
trying to dig out around that fire hydrant.
they're all, or most all of them are in the right of way, not on private property. I have to look to see exactly how it reads, but probably the joining homeowner is supposed to.
Okay,
clean it or
if you
something.
could let us know.
So in terms of enforcement, I think obviously enforcement's a big issue, and it is kind of getting caught in the act kind of situation. But the other important, big thing that I experienced that was incredibly frustrating was, when confronted, the individual doing the plow, it was an unmarked truck from a business, wouldn't provide a name, obstructed his license plate. So I actually didn't even know what company to call to even contact that company and say, hey, look, you have an unsafe plow driver. And so there was no mechanism for me to even, outside of, municipal code. So looking at, I believe it was the town of Tuxedo actually requires all contractors that are for hire plows to actually have a permit. And to be permitted within the town. to operate. And then therefore, if there were instances of bad actors where they were either plowing snow into someone else's, onto someone else's property, if there was a situation, like this, there was actually the ability for a complaint to be filed, and then the village could take action by pulling the permit and not allowing that particular company to operate within the municipality. It's my understanding too, Mayor, you and I were talking about, there was a commercial property within the village that was depositing snow in a public triangle. That was also where a historical marker was. So it's like, in that commercial property sense, it's their responsibility to move their snow, not deposit it at an intersection.
Right.
So, in a situation like that, if we also add into the code, not moving it from property A to property B, if a villager calls with a complaint and says a plow just put everything on my front lawn, what do we do? And if it's a case of a vacant property or a commercial property where the property owner who's affected by this doesn't know who the plow driver was, so there could be an element of permitting. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but if enforcement and figuring out an enforcement mechanism is an issue, that's why the town of Tuxedo.
Let me work with Lydia, see what we did, wording, and we'll pick this up at our next. Okay. Next on the agenda is an approval of a letter to the public regarding Sunnyside Bridge. I made one modification to this. This was sent to me. Our folks are, as I mentioned, our contractor that we work with on the bridge helped put this together. I did change it so that it's sincerely from the village board, rather than just the mayor. So I don't know if folks had a chance to look at this, thought it was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, just to say it out loud too, maybe there's something to add in here that mentions regular updates to be looking at our monthly meetings, like once a month, we'll have a similar update. The message is good for sure, but
Yeah,
I think to improve the problem that led to this, right?
What I'll do is I'll edit that last sentence, George, where it says we'll provide updates to something with a time frame on it.
With a goal of being,
Yeah.
Once a month.
Yeah.
Regular at minimum
Regular.
something or whatever.
As the project advances, is a
Yeah.
little open-ended, but it's, the message is good.
Okay. So we'll go with that. Next, is a discussion of a potential lease with Freedom Foundation.
Freedom Park Foundation.
I'm sorry, the Freedom Park Foundation, regarding the amphitheater. They've approached us a couple of times recently about potential grants. That require that they have authority over the amphitheater property, proper, not the whole, park area, but the stage and surrounding seating and walkways. This puts in place something we actually already sort of operate under. And it's just a lease, doesn't put us in any kind of position where we're not able to have a say in what gets done, but it does give them the permission to operate and manage the property the way they feel it should be done. I do want to add that we have 3 members of both boards. So we have the majority of people on the board actually of a single group. So we do have participation in the Freedom Park Foundation Board of Directors. I think this would allow them to apply for grants that they normally would not be eligible for. And member items that they would not be eligible for. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just so everyone knows, this really codifies what's actually was established in the Freedom Park Foundation's board, bylaws when it was formed back actually 50 years ago this year. And, you know, the stage previous to the current stage was actually completely built by the Freedom Park Foundation. The recent stage replacement was facilitated by our Village Parks team, so it's been this great partnership for a while. You know, but also Freedom Park for the longest time has been exclusively managed by Freedom Park, the foundation. It wasn't until around COVID where I think performers were trying to look for some outdoor venues during COVID that the village started actually permitting individuals to be there. But that kind of created this issue, right, where it's like, okay, you have the stage, but you don't have access to the backstage or to the bathrooms backstage or to the sound system because all that was furnished and built by the foundation. So what this does, it actually empowers the Freedom Park Foundation to also manage the facility, use their expertise, their relationships and their connections to also be able to manage additional, you know, musicians that may want to use the facility, be able to look at additional programming such as a performing arts summer program, you know, or even just, you know, have additional partnerships with other arts organizations. But I do think it's also in the benefit of the village to be able to leverage some of those private grants that municipalities aren't eligible for, but nonprofits are. So codifying this, I think, would be advantageous for everyone.
And this is not, if all of a sudden 60 concerts drive, this is not meant to expand the requirement that the village has to provide coverage and things like, we would have an ability to work with Freedom Park Foundation around issues such as that.
Right, because the services we currently provide when the concerts are in is really part of an in-kind sponsorship in many ways.
And so if they wanted to be more, we'd have to renegotiate that part of it.
And just to fix, I don't know if 3 is a majority of the whole board.
I'm sorry,
But it is a significant voice out.
I meant of the single group. Any thoughts?
I just wanted to say, we love the stage. It's just been a great addition. 3 and 4, just the questions. The foundation may maintain, repair, renovate, or expand the amphitheater. However, renovations, expansion, or changes that significantly impact Freedom Park shall not be done without approval of the Board of Trustees. I mean, it is vague. I'm just asking because I'm sure DPW knows their responsibilities. The village shall be responsible for the maintenance and care of the Freedom Park grounds. The village may continue routine maintenance and repair the stage. Obviously, that's vague, but we know the parameters when there's a repair that would fall on us.
Currently, it's all I don't know if that would change
This
or
is
not.
May.
I haven't read that yet.
So part of this is, you know, when you lease it, you still own it, right? So when you lease your house, if you're having a plumbing issue, the property owner is gonna wanna fix the plumbing issue. If it has a bad roof and it's ruining things inside, the owner of the house is gonna wanna replace the roof. So this gives us the ability to be able to make those suitable repairs. But at the same time, there are things the foundation may have raised money for that they want to upgrade, like maybe changing fixtures in the artist bathroom that's backstage. Maybe it's, you know, adding additional storage cabinets.
Sound system.
Getting a new sound system that's affixed into the stage, that's a permanent install. replacing the lighting, adding sidewalks, changing and making the landscaping within the amphitheater either more deliberate and attractive or ADA accessible. So it allows the commission the ability to make these decisions, to be able to apply for these grant funds without always having to come back to the board. However, if they are planning a major expansion where the stage grows from its current footprint and starts encroaching into the alienated parkland, that's when the village board steps in, is like, yeah, no. Like, it's fine in its current footprint, you can make changes. You know, you can build a whole new stage if you want, as long as it fits within the footprint. But if it exceeds that footprint, that's when the village has to take into responsibility.
And we're very careful that the language does not expand what the village has to be doing at Freedom Park. You know, with police coverage and.
I have a question for Lydia regarding liability.
Can we insure the building? Do we get insurance now from them, performance?
We should be.
Yeah. Just like any other parkland, they should still be, it's our, if somebody gets hurt, it's still on us.
Because it's a village
Right.
park.
So any other park,
Can we make
user
sure?
has to provide insurance. I think the performance do now, but that's.
I don't get them, so if they do, we can add that.
That's a question you have to bring to the foundation, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, if that can be part of this to make sure, but even repairs, since we own the building, I know that's something we talked about. Remember with Little League, they weren't maintaining it properly, so that's why we started doing it.
Is it a
That's kind
clause that we bill back for some maintenance?
of vague, that,
Like the other ladies agreement, that's.
like I understand renovations, but
No, it just says, the village may continue to maintain and repair the stage. It doesn't.
we have a lot of bays. You know,
Yeah. I have to read it too.
I think that's kind of where I'm at too, is like, let's let Ryan review the, you know, the document, and we certainly should identify where the responsibility of the leaser, the leasing entity and our, so to your point, are you gonna mow all of the stuff in there, or are they gonna mow?
So,
And then to the liability obviously is one concern for sure, and then, you know, obviously the improvements need to be, you know, suitable. Of course, the foundation's gonna be able to do it differently than the municipality would, depending on the funding that they get. And that's the other thing too, is does that completely separate the foundation from the village when it comes to rounds of funding, in the sense that, like, if we do get a Village of Scotia grant loan, does that affect, or if they get one as the foundation, does that affect our eligibility since it's own property?
so the answer is, this lease does not prohibit the village from applying for grants that it's eligible for park improvements, because we own the property.
I understand that.
However, because we have no formal agreement, and for the last 50 years, we have been operating with no formal agreement between a nonprofit foundation that has absolutely no authority over any inch of that current facility. There are grants, a substantial amount of grants, that they're eligible for, that we simply are not eligible for. So what we are doing is taking the bylaws that were adopted by the Freedom Park Foundation and approved by the 3 members of the village board at that time, or the 3 voting members of the board of directors at that time the corporation was formed, codifying them into a lease agreement. In addition, we did put in elements where there's a non-renewal period where the village can break the lease. And the village can say the foundation can't use the facility anymore. But I wanna caution people, we've been going at this for 50 years one way and not really caring about a lot of things and just allowing the foundation to do things. And now to suddenly wanna kind of grab back control and suddenly be, wanna say and, what the stage looks like. If it's not doing any harm to Freedom Park, why not leverage a public-private partnership that we have a good track record with? And the reason why it says may instead of shall is to give the flexibility for the village and the Freedom Park Foundation to have conversation. So if Village Parks looks at a renovation or a landscape treatment that is just going to make it harder for the village to do its job, part of being in a partnership is having those conversations and having that agreement, and that's why it says may.
Is we can say no.
Correct.
And it does say that no significant changes can be made without village approval.
Correct.
So what's the,
So on the fee schedule, you adopted a fee for Freedom Park Stage. So is that not, when people call, are we no longer doing that?
The recommendation would be, because again, we didn't have that before, and again, until COVID, and we added it because we were like, oh, hey, someone else wants to rent it. When you look through the original bylaws of the
I'm just
Freedom
asking
Park
a
Foundation,
question.
yeah, like it actually says that they're able to rent it out. They've never rented it out before. So in my mind, with the passing of this lease agreement, because we did allow and put in there sublease, I believe. Where they could sublease it out.
No, we took some.
We took sublease out. So
We
in that
left
case,
that they can rent.
rent is, that they can rent it to other people is a sublease. Right?
Well, I think the idea is that they're scheduling other uses. They're not, like, not a lease like you have this lease, yeah. They can't then sublease it to someone else to then operate or use on a long-term basis. That's only allowing people to, whatever they do, is gonna be for overall benefit of the public.
Correct.
So this would supersede then, to answer the question.
We can rescind the rental fee for Freedom Park, but it wouldn't waive the park use application. So if an entity that's not the Freedom Park Foundation wants to hold a concert in Freedom Park, they would still need to apply for a park use application, which would then trigger like the other services, like if they're having 1,500 people, the village police may want to be like, they need, that entity needs to pay for police coverage. If it's gonna require the bathrooms to be open, then that entity needs to pay, the fee to the village to open up the bathrooms. So, the rental of Freedom Park by the foundation to a group that's not Freedom Park doesn't take away the requirement for a park use application.
Okay, so I have another question. So on 4, the village may continue routine maintenance and repair of the stage, may. So if we don't do, if the village discontinues that for whatever reason, then that's gonna fall back on the foundation.
So that clause is specifically for the fact that we do the mowing. There's been times where we, maintained portions of it. We led some of the work with fixing the stage after Hurricane Irene. We
Well, should it
empty
be
the garbage.
The village shall
No,
continue?
we
Or you
wanna
want
be
may?
able to not. Shall would mean that we're definitely doing it.
So May also allows the Freedom Park Foundation, if they have a group of volunteers that want to go in and do some, basic cleanup in a park cleanup, that they can do it.
Okay, and what happens if those volunteers do something faulty and then there's an injury? I'm not talking about this thing up, that where the liability falls.
Freedom Park Foundation, I'm sure has, we can ask them if they have insurance. But we also, again, the village does, volunteers have park cleanups. I led 3 of them in Collins Park.
there's somebody that walks around now and collects money. All, like their ankle.
I plan to.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a park, we're still
I-
responsible.
I mean, we
We can't put-
definitely do have to ask about the insurance.
Yeah.
The insurance is, I can, but the insurance is somewhat different than this.
I have no questions about the document itself, and I'm in support. I think it codifies things that have been longstanding and should have been done before, so I want to applaud all of us for making sure that this happens now. My only question is, has anyone talked about term yet?
The term,
Says,
the terms are, well, so if we were to apply, or I should say, if the Freedom
Blank
Park
years.
Foundation were to apply for, say, a NISTA capital grant. If we're not talking about a short-term 2 to 5 year lease, oftentimes leases for grants need to show the lifespan, the useful lifespan of whatever capital improvement. So NISCA recommended 15 years. The mayor and I were talking initial 10 years with an auto renew for 5 after that, with the ability to break it if needed.
Mhm.
But I do want to point everyone's attention to number 9, that there is, modification and amendment provision. So it's not like, we're locking ourselves into an immobile lease. Again, just going back to the public-private partnership, these are conversations, if you're noticing things are being damaged or things aren't necessarily being done with good work, then that's when we go back to the board and we say, hey, look, you're doing all these changes, but it's not either A, it's not quality work, or B, it's having a negative impact on the park.
This can't, the Freedom Board, the Freedom Park Board Foundation cannot all of a sudden change something without it coming through both parties now,
Right, in terms of the lease.
in terms of lease.
Yeah, I mean, it has all the right provisions in it. I mean, I asked that question because I would suggest
No.
probably not going less than 10 years. It has out clauses, it's got a 60-day renewal thing, it's got a auto renew for 5 years. I mean, I think we should be looking at 10 if people are comfortable with that.
yeah, I think we just need to get Ryan Reed on it and
Yeah.
answer liability and set the orders. Like who's gonna mow, who's gonna remove the trash, who's gonna, just so we have the expectation.
Well, I'll be honest, there's no trash cans located within the amphitheater, they're all outside of the amphitheater, which falls outside of the parameters of this lease.
Well, that's not defined yet, so.
It says within the
No.
amphitheater.
Medical call.
The amphitheater is defined as the stage and the audience seating platform and the dance floor. Anything outside of those physical elements is Freedom Park. And the bathrooms, as well as a lot of the garbage cans, are oftentimes located outside of that amphitheater seating.
I think there was one spot, it had things that had read stage, it was switched to amphitheater, and number 4. Stage was not changed.
Okay.
Sorry.
So then it's just an exhibit showing that, right?
Then it's just what,
It's an exhibit with a map that says this is what we're talking about.
the actual map
Yeah.
or drawing, but I think it's meant to be the
That's
structure stage, right? The
Yeah.
dance floor.
In the comments that I put in that didn't make it in here, I did go into a little bit more detail in terms of defining it as the stage, the amphitheater area, and the audience infrastructure. So that would include the terraces, the sidewalks going within that area, any other kind of seating, sound booth, dance floor, that kind of stuff.
I can add that as a definition. Do you remember the date? This needs to be,
I mean, we've gone 50 years without it.
I know the date you need to for the grant.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
We missed the day I say we, the village missed the opportunity to have this done for the NISTA grants.
So we'll make the changes and put this for a vote
For next week?
for next week
Great.
in comments. I have one additional item. If I could get a motion for the resolution, for police vehicle repair.
So moved.
Here's the,
Second.
here's the,
Oh, you want me to read the whole thing?
yeah,
All right, I'll make a resolution that, we enter into, approve an agreement with Auto Solutions.
It's not an Explorer.
It is,
It's not the Taurus that's sitting over there. I thought it was a Taurus.
it's Explorer.
My apologies. And the one I thought was sitting over at the Lloyd.
Make a motion approving Board of Trustees, to enter an agreement with Auto Solutions, the amount of $17,500 for the repair of police vehicle, the 2024 Explorer. And to make the associated budget amendment from line 8100, A 9015 8100, to line A 3120 4540.
What's up with that Taurus then?
any questions?
You can go auction, but it's
I know.
All in favor?
waiting.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Did you vote?
Yes.
Abstain? So moved.
How quickly on the turnaround?
Can I get a
Weeks.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second?
All in favor, aye.
I need a second.
Second.